I'll be talking on Charcot arthropathy. I hope you can all see the slide, and it's very surprising. We have been talking about Charcot for last several decades, and we didn't know that Charcot arthropathy was diagnosed in non-diabetics way back in 18th century, when diabetic patients never used to live so longer to get neuropathy and Charcot foot. So Jean-Martin Charcot described this entity in arthropathy of ataxia in tabes dorsalis. So there were non-diabetic conditions in which Charcot foot was first time described, and several neurological disorders like cerebromalia, meningomyelocele, spinal cord injury. I have already talked about tabes dorsalis. So these were the conditions where they used to find Charcot arthropathy before this century, when the insulin was discovered and diabetic patients started living longer. 40 years back, or almost 30, 40 years back, I used to work as resident in leprosy ward for 3, 4 months. And let me tell you, those days, leprosy and leprosy causing Charcot arthropathy was the commonest cause, more common than diabetes. And remarkably, all leprotic patients with involvement of feet, extensive neuropathy, used to have Charcot arthropathy, but they used to carry on with their ulcerations, all sorts of deformities, because they didn't have hyperglycemia, and therefore they wounds used to remain very clean, and they used to keep it clean with the help of maggots. They were the podiatrists for them. But the last 20 years or so, diabetes has emerged as the commonest cause of Charcot arthropathy. It is very poorly understood and frequently overlooked clinical condition all over the world, and in India also is no exception. Although its prevalence varies from 1% to 8%, but what I would like to emphasize that the clinician managing diabetic patients with loss of protective sensations should have high index of suspicion. That's most important to detect Charcot foot. Definition wise, it's relatively painless as they have loss of protective sensation. It's a progressive disease. It's a destructive arthropathy, and it involves sometimes single or even multiple joints due to underlying neuropathy. So neuropathy is a prerequisite with loss of protective sensation for Charcot arthropathy. The pathogenesis of Charcot foot is multifactorial. There is loss of protective sensation, and then it leads to mechanical stress, the abnormal architecture of the foot. In presence of autonomic neuropathy, there is AV shunting, and that leads to more bony resorption. And then unhealed trauma to the foot because of neuropathy is a precipitating event. And patients who have kidney failure or stage 3, stage 4 renal failure have a very high chance of getting Charcot foot and even amputation. So the basic thing is there is more of bone resorption over bone deposition. The commonly involved joints, as you can see here, the most common is tarsometatarsal, but all other joints, metatarsophalangeal joint, interphalangeal joint, tarsal bones, all joints of the foot can get involved, but the commonest is tarso-metatarsal joint. But as I said, ankle joint, subtalar, interphalangeal joints also can get involved. The destruction occurs either because of single or repetitive stress applied to bones and joints of this insensate foot. This results in fractures, effusion, ligament laxity, erosion of articular cartilages, fragmentation, luxation of the bone, disintegration, and finally collapse of the foot. Uncontrolled inflammation leads to release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, and this liberation of cytokine increases the expression of polypeptide receptor activator of nuclear factor, which is known as Rankel hypothesis, and it triggers maturation of osteoclast from pre-osteoclast. And as I said earlier, osteoclastic activity is more dominant than osteoblastic activity. There are various stages of Charcot foot. Stage 1, when it's in the developmental stage, sometimes it is acute inflamed edematous foot. With early bone destruction, you may find some fracture. In stage 2, there is coalescence, the inflammation is subsiding, the foot is no longer hot, and there is an attempt for union of fractures. And stage 3 is the reconstructive phase, where there is no inflammation, the joints get ankylosed, there is hypertrophy of bones, but every patient need not go through all these stages. These stages can coexist at the same time in a given patient. So you can have in both feet Charcot arthropathy and in different stages of Charcot arthropathy in the same patient. So as I said, it's mostly misdiagnosed or is missed. The diagnosis is missed very commonly. So early characteristic diagnostic of Charcot foot are 5 important signs. 1, loss of medial concavity. I will come to that. Secondly, unilateral painless swelling of the foot, callus or ulcer on the midfoot. Normally we see callus on the forefoot, on the tips of toes or MTH. But here we find midfoot callus or ulcer, and there is an altered shape of the foot. You see prominent veins on dorsum of foot. And here you can see what I mean by loss of medial arch or medial concavity is lost. This is normal medial arch, and this is what happens in Charcot. Instead of concavity, it becomes convex. So this is early detection. And you can see clinically it looks like this, medial convexity. Secondly, if you get a patient with unilateral painless swelling of the foot, after ruling out DVT and other things, if the patient has painless edema, always do an X-ray and you are likely to pick up. You can see here fracture of the metatarsal, second metatarsal, and this is very common, unilateral painless edema of the foot. Thirdly, I said all the time we see callus and ulcer on tips of toes or metatarsal heads. But in Charcot foot, as I said, the pressure is in the midfoot, and you can find a callus or a deep ulcer in the midfoot. If you find a midfoot ulcer, it's the diagnostic of Charcot foot. And this is how the convexity appears in the midfoot. Finally, the sign is prominent veins over the dorsum of the foot because of AV shunting, and you have to immobilize such feet, and this is another way to pick up. And you can also see the foot is wide, little abnormal, and that's diagnostic of Charcot foot. So one can detect Charcot in early stages if you keep your eyes open and keep the diagnosis always at the back of mind in any patient with diabetes who has lost all the neuropathic or loss of protective sensations. The radiologically, it appears as fractures, fragmentation, dislocation, or absorption of the metatarsal or phalanges, leading to pencil-like appearance or a suck candy appearance of metatarsals, mortar pestle of IP and MTP joint, and hourglass appearance of the phalanges. And you can see this, you can typical hourglass appearance of the phalanges, mortar and pestle appearance again in interphalangeal joint of the first toe. This is a pencil-like because of the great absorption of calcium. The bones have tremendous osteoclastic activity instead of osteoblastic. So there is a tremendous osteomalacia, loss of calcium, and that leads to pencil-like appearance or a sucked candy appearance of metatarsals. You can again see a sucked candy appearance uh, of metatarsals, again diagnostic sign of Charcot. And when the foot is advanced with Charcot foot and radiological changes, you can see this again suck candy appearance here, loss of tarsal bones, almost 3 or 4 tarsal bones have been completely dissolved, reabsorbed. So there are hardly few tarsal bones left. This is an advanced Charcot arthropathy. You can see the total abnormality in the shape of the foot, and here the management becomes more and more difficult. Again, as I said, it can involve all the joints from phalanges to subtalar joints. And you can see involvement of the ankle joint. If you see the patient from behind, you're able to pick up Charcot involving ankle joint. And if you do X-ray, you can see the characteristic changes of Charcot foot. This patient came to me in summer last year with thermal injury. You can see on the left foot and superficial thermal injury. But I told the patient that I want to get X-ray of your right foot. He refused for that simply because he said my problem is with left foot. I don't want to spend money on the right foot. But I insisted I will not treat your left foot unless you get an X-ray of your right foot. And surprisingly, or you can see the right foot was X-rayed. You can see the widening and edema of this foot, which was said to be normal, but you can see the fracture of fifth metatarsal. So this is how you can pick up Charcot if you keep eyes open and mind open for diagnosing Charcot. Here also you can see involvement of the tarsometatarsal tarsal joints. So this can be picked up only if you have that high index of suspicion. Sometimes it involves both the feet because neuropathy is symmetrical bilateral, and this becomes even more difficult to treat when the involvement is of bilateral, involving all the important joints. So the mobility, locomotion becomes very, very difficult. Even the offloading is very difficult if it is bilateral. Here you can see again involvement of the calcaneus. It's almost fractured, loss of a lot of osteoclastic activity. And if you again always examine such patients from behind, you can see prominent tendoachilles on this side, but here there is obliteration of tendoachilles. You can see the foot is only swollen. And if you do the X-ray, you will be able to pick up the diagnosis of Charcot foot. But remembering Indian conditions, treating ankle joint Charcot is becoming more difficult because we do not have so much expertise in doing reconstruction surgeries in Charcot foot in India. But overseas, there are a lot of advances to seal all the Charcot foot of ankle, or difficult fractures and dislocations of the foot can be now managed by metallic wires and internal and external fixation. In extreme case, when the neuropathy ascends, as we know, it's glow and stocking type of polyneuropathy. When the neuropathy extends above knee joint, usually we don't find involvement of the hands in diabetes as we find in leprosy. But in late stages, even hands are involved. So also, as the neuropathy advances in the limb, it goes above knee joint. Even knee joint can become Charcot foot, Charcot knee joint. And then it becomes very difficult because this disability is very difficult to treat. Even if you do a knee replacement, the main cause is not taken care of. But this is not very common. But occasionally in patients who have advanced polyneuropathy ascending up to thigh, you can get Charcot of knee joint as well. And the management is total rest to the foot in acute stage. If the swelling subsides, we can immobilize the patient with TCC, but we have to change TCC every month and have a look at the foot. So minimum 3 to 4 months of TCC, prevention of further trauma, protective footwear are the treatment for acute stage in, and this is a chronic stage. You can see the bilateral foot ulcers, but the ulcers have healed completely with complete offloading of the right foot. So even Charcot foot ulcers, as big as this, can heal if proper offloading is carried out. But in Charcot foot, if the infection develops, you can see the midfoot ulcer here, and this is the source of infection. From it has ascended up to knee joint. There is extensive cellulitis. You can see blisters. This is a bad prognostic sign, and often such patients require major limb amputation. Surgical treatment is osteotomy if the exostosis is there, or orthodesis, internal fixation to restore stability of the joint. This is a typical osteotomy. When the bone is protruding and causing midfoot ulcer, we can remove, excise. This is the simple surgery and is possible in our conditions. And once you remove that protruding bone, the foot can be healed with surgical closure. In some patients, when the ankle is involved, you have to go for internal fixation or external fixation. But these surgeries are not carried out routinely. They are in a specialized orthopedic centers. People have also tried medical therapy like intravenous bisphosphonates, oral bisphosphonates, calcitonin nasal spray. But all these medical therapy have very limited response, and there is no specific guideline to use these oral or intravenous injections for treatment of Charcot. As I said earlier, 40 years back, when I was a resident in internal medicine, I used to see leprosy patients, and was the commonest cause of Charcot feet in India. And the involvement used to be bilateral. You can see midfoot ulcers bilateral. The remarkable changes, see the floor of the ulcer, it's all red, granulation, without any infection. This doesn't occur in diabetic. In diabetic, you find a lot of slough, pus, infection, and that heads for major limb amputation. But here you can see clean floor, even if it is bilateral involving both the feet. These are another advanced case of leprotic foot with Charcot, and you can see complete loss of calcium, tremendous osteoclastic activity, no osteoblastic activity at all. There is hardly any calcium in the bones, but still it's a walkable foot. And if you observe carefully this foot, you see that all the 5 toes are still intact. Few bones have been absorbed, as you can see, but all 5 toes are intact, heel is intact, and this is a walkable foot despite auto amputation and gross osteoporosis. But if in diabetic, as I said, the progression is so rapid, if we don't take or diagnose it at early stage, in a chronic Charcot foot, the foot becomes a bag of loose bones, as you can see. And if you hold this foot, you can turn it by 180 degrees. Nothing happens. It's so painless. But such failed foot in Charcot is very difficult to treat, reconstruct such environment. So early detection is the key to success. Strict non-wet bearing with TCC for 3 months. Try to convert stage of destruction to stabilization and offer them protective footwear with custom molded insoles, extra depth foot. So high index of suspicion is the key, and delayed diagnosis and mismanagement leads to foot becoming a bag of loose bone. Thank you very much.